Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session focuses on the procedure in community language learning method. I hope and expect by the end of this session you would have some understanding of the nature of procedure that is adopted by the teachers who use CLL in a language teaching classroom. Well, my dear students, each CLL course is a unique experience in itself. Why it is a unique experience? Because each group of language learners is different and unique. Description of typical CLL procedures in a class period then becomes problematic, and we cannot give an exact format or we cannot give an exact sample of the kind of procedures that are to be followed. In this regard, STEBIC 1980 distinguishes between classical CLL based directly on the model proposed by Quran and then the personal interpretations model such as those discussed by different advocates of CLL which are referred to by LaForge in 1983. Some typical activities in community language learning classroom would be where generally the observer will see a circle of learners all facing one another. So the students would be made to sit in a circle, everybody being able to look at all the others. The learners are linked in some way to the knower or the knowers for a single knower as teacher. So either the knowers of language who are the native speakers or typically a teacher who is going to teach them would be the knower in that case. And this group would thus be linked to this knower. The first class and then of course the subsequent classes may begin with a period of silence in which learners try to determine what is supposed to happen in their language class. So, the learners have a kind of independence where they can decide what kind of activity do they want to have. In later classes, learners may sit in silence while they decide what to talk about. Now, what is the role of the observer? The observer may note that the awkwardness of silence becomes sufficiently agonizing for someone to volunteer to break the silence. I think this is something very natural. When a group of people is made to sit silently, this would be very agonizing, very painful to sit quietly. And of course, out of all that chaos and disturbance would emerge somebody as a volunteer who would say, okay, I would speak. The knower may use a volunteered comment as a way of introducing discussion of classroom contexts or as a stimulus for language interaction. Now, the knower or the teacher may encourage learners to address questions to one another or to the knower. So, at the initial stages, the knower asks the questions from the learners and then encourages the learners to ask questions from him or her, that is the knower. And then the knower or the teacher encourages the learners to ask questions from each other. The questions and answers may be tape recorded for later use because later on they can be analyzed. As far as the class is concerned, for example, facing lines for 3-minute pair conversations can take place, equivalent to the brief wrestling sessions for judo students practice. Then they would reform into smaller groups and a single topic would be chosen by the class or the group that is to be discussed by the class. Now the summary of the group discussion is to be presented by another group. So this is how in smaller groups in the classroom they are supposed to interact. When the learners would have some knowledge of the target language and their learning level would increase, as they would reach at an intermediate or at an advanced stage of the class, a paper drama for presentation can be prepared. Drama group prepares a story shown to the counselor or the teacher or what we may call the knower who would correct the target language statements and would suggest some improvements. So under the guidance of the knower or the teacher, the learners would improve the script. And students are then given materials to prepare large picture cards to accompany their story. After practicing the story dialogue and preparing the accompanying pictures, each group then presents this paper drama to the rest of the class. So these small groups who have prepared separate small dramas, one after the other, they would be given a chance to present these to the whole class. The students accompany their story with music, with puppets, and with drums. And of course, students are given freedom to use their creativity in this regard. Finally, when it comes to the procedures of the CLL class, the teacher asks learners to reflect on the language class. They are asked to think about what do they think, what do they feel about the whole experience. The reflection provides the basis for discussion of the contracts. Written or oral contracts that learners and teachers agree upon specify what they agree to accomplish within the course. So there is no set procedure, I would say, as a concluding remark. There is no set procedure for CLL that can be provided as a sample, but a general kind of outline of activities or procedures can only be provided as I have done through this session. And actually, it is through these activities that the learners would negotiate amongst themselves what kind of tasks they want to accomplish within that community of language learners, and thus what kind of topics they want to talk about or to discuss. And in all this process, the language learning of L2 would take place.